Good evening. This is Gloria Taylor Brown, and this is the 34th Gathering of Priestesses. Thank you and welcome. Everyone is coming in now. Tonight's guest is Kayla Ambrose, coming to us from Raleigh, North Carolina, or thereabouts. Apparently she lives somewhere outside of Raleigh. As well as my co-host, Catherine Ravenwood, who is in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm in Oceanside, California. I'm delighted to tell you it's raining here. Oh, my God. It has been so dry, and we have numerous cities in California who are currently getting their water through tanker trucks in order to flush their toilets and take showers. So we're delighted to see the rain. Now we just hope we don't get so much that it flows all over us, because it frequently does that here. So Kayla has had a radio and podcast show since 2006. She was a pioneer in the industry. She's been, she has, is it 4 books now?
4 books, yeah.
Yeah, she has 4 books, one of which is The Awakened Auras, as well as a book on the ghost in North Carolina, and a book on the mystery schools. So we're going to have a really interesting conversation here tonight, and we are glad you could join us. And Kayla, so the question we ask when we start this show, and the only question we prepare in advance, is what brought you on to the priestess path?
I say, Gloria, in this particular lifetime, and because I believe in reincarnation, for me, this lifetime, I was born this way. I came back remembering things even as a little girl, and I would have prophetic dreams. I would talk to my parents about things. I was sent to Catholic school, and I would talk to the priest there and say, where are the priestesses? And I would talk about Mary and say, well, I see you have Mary as the mother, but what about the work she did as a priestess? So at first I understood it in that Catholic upbringing there. And my parents, I was very lucky growing up in Louisiana. They were used to this. When I was born with this big mass of red hair, there's a story in my family that every 3rd generation, one of us is born with the red hair, and we know things and see things, or have the gift, as some people say. So it had been in my family a long time. My great-grandmother raised her entire family reading tea leaves in South Louisiana for people. So it wasn't uncommon to have a child talking about auras and dreams that came true and things like this. What they didn't expect is that I would remember so much about these past lives and talk about them early on. And what happened is I loved to read. So I'd go to the public library and read stories I loved, mythology, and I would start editing these books and say, that is not Medusa. She was not bad. The snakes mean wisdom. And I'm 8 and 9 years old rewriting these books. So my parents would get a call, you need to come buy this book. She's defaced a book, they would call it. I called it improving. But, and trying to educate people there in the library. So I got this great library growing up of library books my parents had to buy because I kept rewriting them. And so from there, I was just on that road. I wanted to study comparative religion when I was a teenager. Every chance I got to go to a different type of religion or spiritual practice, I would ask my friends, can I go to your church or your temple? Because I just knew they was all saying the same thing at that core level. And I didn't know where I was going to go with all of this or what it would evolve, but I just knew it was me and that it was part of me. And so I guess I'm saying I was reborn a priestess and just continuing on where I left off, to be continued from the last time.
Well, that's interesting. I haven't met many people who remember past lives. I came in remembering past lives, and in fact was a bit of a brat about it whenever I was little, because I would inform my mother that she was not really my mother.
Oh.
And that I knew who my mother was and she wasn't here. And then I would also tell her about things that weren't happening here. Luckily, I had a grandmother that did tarot cards and read palms. And so she didn't think there was anything wrong with the fact that I was seeing ghosts and dead people and, you know, what have you, and that I could talk about past lives. She basically told me to keep it quiet. You know, that where we lived and in our community, it was not approved. But when I was 5, she taught me to read palms, and when I was 7, she taught me to read tarot cards. So you know, it's really interesting. Like I said, I've met very few, except for some of the new millennial children, and some of them are coming in remembering in detail their past lives. And very, very interesting. One young man, we were driving around, he's 2 years old. We're talking about moving into this house, and it's a white house. And his mother turns to him and says, "Would you like to live in a white house?" He says, "Well, I used to live in the White House."
Wow.
And he says, "You mean you used to live in a White House?" He says, "No, I used to live in the White House." And so, you know, and he referred to his mother as sister all the time. She said she was his sister. So, you know, and my grandsons and my granddaughters, they've always told me stories about, you know, where they were before. And that's the way they phrased it, where we were before. This is where we did before. So it's very interesting. I'm fascinated by that. So tell me a little bit about your ghost hunting process. I noticed you've collected some stories around that.
Absolutely. I just want to say, though, I love that we're kindred soul sisters with that same type of experience coming back like that. And I love that you mentioned the children today and how it's more common. I think that is where we're evolving. It is going to move where more people do remember. And for whatever reason, you and I remembered in this lifetime, you know, I was little and I remembered being famous in another lifetime. So I would wear sunglasses everywhere I went out. I was 4 and 5 years old. And people loved my hair. They would come and say, "Oh, that child has so cute, her hair." And I would tell my mother, I'm like, "How do they recognize me? I'm wearing sunglasses. I'm trying to be incognito. I know I'm famous, but still they come." And she would just laugh. She thought it was so funny. And, you know, I was very lucky to have a mother that understood that and was, you know, and being in Louisiana, everyone has a ghost story. Everyone's had some kind of spiritual experience. So you can kind of let it hang out in Louisiana and talk about it more. And I think that was so great to get that. You know, you pick your parents, I think. You pick where you're born. I love that I picked that opportunity to be born in Louisiana and get that rich diversity there and be able to talk about spirit in so many different ways. Even people that are a religion like Catholic, they roll it into everything else. It becomes its own style. Everything's a gumbo down there, right? So it allowed me to kind of to do that too and make my own analogy and creation in that way. But you and I probably could talk for hours about that growing up as children, how different it was to know these things and remember them. And I would speak out, and my mother was a very proper Southern woman, and she's like, "You know, you're not supposed to." And I would say, "I'm the New South, Mama. I'm the New South. This is how it's going to be." And she would just, you know, so I have to give her credit for raising me because I know it probably wasn't easy. But yeah, so ghosts too. So like you, I've seen ghosts and spirits since I was a little girl. When I first saw them, I thought some of them that were really bright, I would see them and think, "Oh, that's a guardian angel," because I was being raised Catholic, so that's how I was taught to understand. So I would make a place for them on my bed and say, "Oh, you know, you're my guardian angel, come sleep, you must be tired." But as I got a little older and saw there were different energies and entities, I started to understand a ghost, which is different than a spirit. And entities and spirits, some that were lighter and brighter than others. And so I had to learn kind of my own way to put up a protective shield and, you know, protection. And so a culmination of that since childhood learning and doing, I've always been interested in all the facets of spirit world. And I believe that to be a priestess, a wise woman, whichever you'd like to call it, that we have to really understand all the facets of spirit world. And to truly get an understanding of all those things, then it helps you to know where to go, when to go, how to travel. As I say, I'm your travel guide to the other side. So I like to show people the different aspects and to talk about the ghosts, why they're there. Why does someone stay as a ghost? Why did they move on? And for anyone that's not sure, how it's defined is a ghost is earthbound. They didn't cross over. They didn't go to spirit world. And a spirit is someone who did cross over. They moved on to spirit world, but they decide at times to come back and visit the earth plane. But ghosts, in a sense, are earthbound. And for one reason or another, they didn't go through the light, as we say. So I teach about this, I talk about it, and a publisher who does travel books was writing a whole series called America's Haunted Road Trip, and they're writing about all of the 50 states, the most publicly accessible haunted sites, the history of it, why they're haunted, and they hire someone to go and research, and they approached me about writing North Carolina, so I was happy to do it and explore a very haunted state here. You've got the graveyard of the Atlantic on one side with so many shipwrecks and Blackbeard the pirate, and I wanted to go investigate all that. You've got some of the oldest mountain ranges in the world here, the Blue Ridge Smoky Mountains, that are really ancient mountains that hold a lot of energy for long time. So you've got a lot of haunted activity up there. And I had so much fun doing that I went back and did another book with them called Spirits of New Orleans, Voodoo Curses, Vampire Legends, and Cities of the Dead, because there's no place more fun and haunted than New Orleans to cover. So yeah, I did those two books to show the history and what's going on. Why would it be haunted? What happened there? So that people can kind of understand that and the difference between ghosts. Some ghosts are interactive. Some are like an energy imprint that you really can't communicate with. They're just, it's like watching a video reel of an imprint that isn't really there, but the intensity of the energy was so strong that it's left an imprint. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania is a good example of that, where so much death and destruction and emotional intensity with the Civil War there, sometimes brother fighting against brother, really left a strong imprint there. So you see those energy imprints, but they're not still there really. It's just a video, if that makes sense. So, but I could talk about that too for hours.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I lived in a house when I was a teenager that we had 5 ghosts and a poltergeist. Mm-hmm. It was definitely a haunted house, and we had a man who walked his dog on the front porch. We had something that walked up and down the hallway. We had a ghost that lived down in the basement who I didn't like at all. And we had a very, very black evil spirit that lived in the back bedroom. And then we had a poltergeist that used to throw things at us. Mm. And I know that poltergeist energy is primarily for women who are coming into their menses and women who are going through menopause. And since we had both of those in the house, I presume that some of that energy was picked up on. But the poltergeist actually saved my mother's life. Mm. And we used to call him Phineas. And he was extremely playful. If you laid something down on the table and you went back to get it 10 minutes later, there was a good chance it was gone. Mm-hmm. And he liked to hide things and then make them reappear like in the middle of your bed. And so, and by the way, my family is from the bayous of Louisiana as well, my father's family, so I know a little bit about that down there as well. It's a very, very interesting culture, and it makes for a lot of stories. I mean, you could do another whole story on the ghost of the bayous.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, we are kindred sisters. We've got that Cajun energy going.
Yeah. So you said earlier that when we were talking that your first book was actually about the mystery schools. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
At my core, that's who I am. And in my early 20s, I was studying all types of, I had done the comparative religion, was looking at different spiritualities, and I met my first esoteric wisdom teacher. And when I was introduced to that material, it just was like coming home. It was like, yes, this is the past life that I remember so distinctly. And so I flew through those courses at a really rapid speed because I wasn't really learning anything. I was just remembering and connecting the dots. And so I remembered being in ancient Egypt and being a priestess, and the things that I did and taught and what I did in other lifetimes as well, going in other locations, Greece and other places where I did this work. And so it was just continuing. So it just opened it back up for me. So I was so excited to learn this, and my teacher kept saying, "You're going to teach this one day." And I said, "I don't know, if that's my path this time, we'll see." But it did turn out to be that I did. And so I started teaching, and at the time there wasn't online like there is now, so you taught, wherever you were in the area. So I was teaching, and my students really said, there's different levels. I teach the mystery school teachings, the ancient wisdom teachings. So there's the levels, the neophyte, and then initiate, and then adept, and then into mastery. So I was teaching the neophyte lessons to a group of students who were just so wonderful. They said, "Why don't you write this down and turn this into a book?" And so that's what I ended up doing, was taking the 9 core lessons that I teach to the neophyte students, and really are leading you through the journey of who am I and why am I here. And so I put that together in the book, and that became my first book. And it's amazing, the people of all different walks of life that read it, and it works for them. They don't have to be a mystery school student. They don't have to go to that depth. The information in there is really for anyone that just wants to explore at a deeper level. And I started out by saying, don't believe a word I say. And I mean that because it's an integrative experiential book. It's not about me trying to be a teacher or a guru or something, or tell you here's what it is. I'm a guide. That's what I do. I'm helping you remember what you already know. Every one of us, we have this wisdom within. It's in our higher self and the soul level. I'm just guiding the energy, showing you as above, so below, how to bring the energy down, funnel it, focus it, bring it through your aura, and ingratiate it into your heart, open things up at an energetic level, and then learn how to project it into this lifetime, what you want to do. So if I can be a guide and be of service, it's my pleasure to do so. And that's what I do with students. And now with the technology, I teach online and all over. It's great the way things have done. There's almost no time either. It's timeless. We can record it, make it available to everyone. I love, it's like we're seeing this shift, the Aquarian, from 3rd dimension to 4th dimension of time, and blowing that out, moving, more into 5th. It's just such an exciting time to be here. And so I think that's why so many of us as priestesses came back. This is our time to, let's make this happen. Let's just, you feel the juicy divine feminine energy, this new cycle just coming up, and it's spreading, and it's just the most exciting time. And I always remember that, and so even some days are better than others for all of us, and things going on in the world, but I always think about that before any great big change happens, it's always darkest before the dawn. Or even I say, if you're cleaning out a junk drawer or a junk closet, the whole house gets messy before it's in order. This is where we're at. We're cleaning out all the old stuff and just getting ready to, boom, just bring it for this new evolution. And so I think that's reflected in all my books. It's always a positive, we're going through an evolution, let me help you and guide you through it. So walk with me as we kind of explore your spirit together, I guess is what I say.
Well, that's fabulous, and I agree with you. We have to keep it on a positive plane, because, and in a way, you're reflecting the wisdom of the Buddha. It says, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. Yeah, because you are the Buddha. You are your own highest entity. But it's interesting whenever we talk about these different things and we look into the different options. There is this incredible wisdom that is almost, well, in some ways it is. It is entrained within the pyramids of Egypt, the temples of Egypt, the temples of Greece, the in fact, the Blue Ridge Mountains themselves are made of crystals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why Panama City Beach and the beaches down on the Panhandle are so incredibly beautiful and white. That is ground up Blue Ridge Mountains, which is crystal.
Yeah.
And so you have this crystalline energy that has, as you said, been there for a very, very long time, remembering what is going on, remembering who is here, remembering who walked here before. I've traveled through the Blue Ridge Mountains, and there is a very different energy whenever you take the time to travel along let's say the side paths of the Blue Ridge Mountains, instead of just taking the expressway or taking, I-95 north, going through the flatlands. And so there's that energy that you're obviously tapping into, and it's like a battery power is what it seems like to me, that it empowers you to reach beyond where you would normally go. Do you feel that to be true?
I definitely do. I agree. And I think that's why we were brought up here, why I was moved up here to North Carolina. I seem to be making this arc. I'm pulling the ocean energy from the Atlantic Ocean and the other energy from the mountains here and making a pyramid arc here in North Carolina. And I take students a lot to the mountains there to really do some ritual work that we do in the mystery schools, where we incorporate fire, earth, water, and sky, and bring all of those elements together with spirit to really help them open and to bring that energy up in the mountains there. And I loved this past October, I was up there at a world famous spa that asked me to come up there and teach about the aura with my Awakened Aura book. I did a book signing there, and then we put people through treatments there in the spa, and then took their aura photo before and after, and I interpreted what was going on with them with the treatments and how to bring in the elements with everything there, with the mountains, and this particular inn used all the stone from the mountains. It has the quartz crystal ground in it. It's one of my favorite places to go because you feel it energetically. I go there to restore all the time. So it is beautiful here, the energy. It's so interesting you wrote that you spoke about that in Florida. I write about that in the Awakened Aura book, that every land and place has a different aura and a different aura color, and there's a point when I'm driving from North Carolina down 95 into Florida, and that I can see the aura change. It turns pink in Florida. It is a very healing pocket of energy there, and Florida is really great for that. If you need to heal the heart chakra, recover from a relationship, a broken heart, there are actual areas of Florida there on the beaches that are really designed energetically for that, to heal you at the heart level.
I totally believe that to be true, and having lived in Key West for 2 years, Key West is a really interesting place that will stretch your boundaries. I would say it has a completely, I don't know that I saw the aura whenever I drove across the 7 Mile Bridge, but I believe that it probably has a completely different aura from the rest of Florida. And it is really about stretching the boundaries of space and time and reality and everything else that has to do with that. So, it's one of the things that I've always been fascinated with is the idea of the spirit of place. And there was a book written a number of years ago actually called Spirit of Place. But it's, whenever you tap into that spirit of where you are living and realize that you can work with that spirit, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's a spirit. Raven will know about this. I always had a problem with Tacoma. I always felt like Tacoma was basically dead. And it was a very difficult energy for me to work with, very difficult to teach down there. very difficult for me even to travel through there other than just go right through. And yet in Seattle, there was this wonderful positive energy, this uplifting energy that allowed me to expand my boundaries, to expand way beyond whatever I had ever thought I could be. So, you know, it's a different energy, and there's a different energy in every place. Have you ever been to Egypt?
No, well, not this lifetime, I say. And it's funny that I had a couple opportunities where to go, and at the time, the timing just wasn't working out. And one of the things I've always been told by my guides that if you want to go visit, that's great. It's like going home in a sense. But they said your work here is to be focused on creating a new Egypt. And the new Egypt is you know, in America, and to create that energy here. So they've always told me you don't go there to rehash your past. We want you to focus on what you're building now. And so it's interesting. Like I said, I had a couple of opportunities, and just the way things worked out, I couldn't go. So I have strong memories of it, but I haven't gone in this lifetime. But you know what you're saying about place is so, I talk about this a lot. The pink I see in Florida is kind of right past the Panhandle. It's higher. And people will ask me if I do a live show. They're like, oh, tell me about my city. What's the aura color? And there's different energy as well. North Carolina, here's the arc between the mountains and the ocean. That part of Florida is pink and healing for heartbreaks. When I go to New Orleans, all I want to do is write. It awakens the muse in me. And I don't even think we could count how many famous authors have written or lived in New Orleans that were drawn to it. The muse there is so potent to write, to be an artist, to create. Every place has its own energy. And so I think that's why we're drawn to visit different areas, live in different areas, and to go. It awakens that part in us for whatever we need. And so if I want to awaken my creative ability, if I've worn down my batteries, I go to New Orleans because it jumpstarts it like that. And so each place has that special energy. I agree.
Raven, we need to go to New Orleans.
Okay.
So Raven, I wanted to check in with you and see if you had any questions for Kayla.
I do, Kayla, and you know, I don't want to. This is wonderful what you're talking about, but I wanted to go back about the ghosts, and I found it very interesting. You talked about it was like an imprint that just kept happening there. Have you ever helped ghosts leave?
I write about that actually in both the books, Ghost Hunting North Carolina and Spirits of New Orleans. In Spirits of New Orleans, most times, I would write about what I saw, or if I didn't see anything there, I was very honest about it. Some places I went, they were haunted, and I'm just saying on my particular day that I visited, there wasn't. But by St. Louis Cathedral in New Orleans, one of the stories, I cry almost every time I talk about it, was a young girl that was there in ghost form. And she was just, I'm an empath, so I was just feeling all her emotional, the pain, the weeping, the crying, the sorrow. So I had to try to communicate with her. And I kept trying to tell her it's not the same time. She was stuck thinking that what was happening was, reality, her present, and it wasn't. So I spent quite a bit of time visiting with her and saying, this is the future. You've passed on. You don't realize. I finally got her to understand by looking at my clothing. I'm like, I'm a woman. I'm in pants. This is, she was from a time. I'm like, look how I'm wearing. I'm in the street here. And I got her to finally. She was in such a fog, she couldn't really notice her surroundings. Once she focused on me, I could show her the shops there and the lights and things that weren't in her time, and got through to her. And this is the only time it's ever happened with in this experience. But when I got her to open up and realize what had happened, a light opened behind her, and her mother came out, who had been trying to.
Oh my gosh!
And it was the most intense emotional experience I've ever had with anything in spirit like this. The mother had been trying to come so many times, but the girl just had blinders on in this fog, and she saw her for the first time, and they embraced. And I don't even know how to give it words, because the mother just looked at me, and I'm a mother, so I'm, feeling it, what it's like to have your child not, and so they were they moved on.
What
And
a wonderful story.
it was just the most powerful experience I've ever had like that. So I wrote about it in the book, and what's interesting is, you know, I was down in New Orleans last year on book tour, and here's all these people who said, you know, we've read your book, and it's always, you know, when you have locals reading, you hope you're getting everything right, the history and everything, and they said, we cannot tell you how many people talk about this ghost girl, they've all seen her, and they asked for the date when that happened, because they correlated it, and she's never been seen again. And so they said, you know, we can't, you know, it's hard, how do you prove a ghost experience? But as close as we could, it was proved, because they hadn't seen her. And now what's interesting is I was just back there last, not this October, but the one before, I was asked to speak on Anne Rice's, they have a conference down there that Anne Rice does, and I was on the author panel talking about spirits in New Orleans. And so people came up to me and said, hey, guess what? Someone has seen the girl now, but it's different. She's active in spirit form. She seems to approach when there's a young person there in grief going into the cathedral, and it appears that she's trying to help them move on with their grief. So she's not stuck anymore in ghost form. She's now brought it for full circle and is in spirit realm and comes as needed. And that just like made my heart so happy to know that, you know, that she was able to do that and then come forward and be where she was. So I write the whole story because she told me her story of what happened and her lost love, and her father had him imprisoned, and I guess it's a ghost story that I'm writing, and but it's being told to me by the ghost, and that's kind of how the book's Spirits of New Orleans are. And then there's one in North Carolina I wrote about at a very tumultuous, haunted old plantation here. And when I opened up to say if there's anyone here, it filled with tons of people that had been treated wrongly there. And 3 powerful women stepped forward that were holding, because there's still a lot of anger and energy from what was done at that time in history. And they've asked me to come back several times. They won't leave. They're kind of guardians, and they won't leave until they can get the others to leave, and they're kind of stuck in their anger. So I've tried to work with them, but it's a more intensive situation there. There's a lot of energy that has to be smoothed over, and it takes time. So not as easy on that one.
And where was that?
That's Stagville Plantation, which is out past Durham, North Carolina.
Wow.
Well, there's a number of plantations down there that, some of them where the plantation doesn't exist anymore, that have a lot of energy flowing around them. So, Raven, did you have any other questions?
Well, that's what I was thinking about. Now I'm thinking about the Ghost Girl. So, so tell us about your aura work.
Sure. So I've seen auras since I was a little girl, and I would try to explain that to people, and I would sense them as well as physically see them. And so sometimes I'd walk in the room and just feel it. Other times, you know, seeing it around the person, kind of knowing this is a good person, this person's got some things going on. And I would try to share that and talk about it as best I could. And then one day I realized, when I was coloring, the nuns had us color and draw our house and our children, you know, the mother, father, brother and sister, dog, and I was coloring the auras around the pictures. And they said, you're coloring outside the lines. This is and I said, that's where the best colors are, you know. And so it came as a realization to me in elementary school that not everyone was seeing what I was seeing, and that was kind of shocking, because as a kid you don't really question. You know, when you go outside and the sun's out, you don't go, do you see a light in the sky? Is it, you know, you just assume people see what you're seeing. So I started then, I loved to journal even as a child, so I started keeping an aura journal of what I would see around people, because sometimes I would see things that I couldn't quite understand what they were. So really that book started in my childhood with journaling and watching. And then later, I think it's been about maybe 12 years now, about 12 years ago, I started seeing everyone's aura changing. And I realized there's an evolution going on. And so, you know, if you know about the aura, there's layers. I see the physical layer, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual. I see different colors. I watch them move and flow. The aura is always moving in motion. But what really happened is a lot of cords that are attached to the aura, they started changing. And in the solar plexus, the cords were really big. And it was spewing out stuff, looked like toxic waste or something. And I'm like, what is going on? This is so different. And I would notice that the more the stuff would come out of the solar plexus, it would eventually get smaller and smaller and smaller till it was like an umbilical cord. And then it would dry off just like a baby's umbilical cord does and fall off. And I noticed that people's auras I was seeing where this was smaller and dropping off, that the cords were opening bigger around the heart chakra and getting bigger and bigger. And it was building what I called a crystalline grid, a structure, kind of like the tree of life structure, if you can picture, moving the aura from an oval to more of that tree of life. And I was like, I always wondered how we were going to make a change, like you hear about moving into a different dimension or energetically getting things differently. And I realized we're getting a crystalline auric structure built around us that's like our own little ship that's helping us make this shift. And so it's been fascinating to watch this over people, and everyone, it's a different evolution. The children coming in, theirs are already more fully formed. The rest of us, we're in stages of building it. And that's how we're going to make this evolutionary leap. It's going to happen first in the aura and the downloads that come through from the higher realms and help us to do that. So that's why I wrote the Awakened Aura book, because there's a lot of great aura books out there that, you know, and talk about the colors. But I was like, okay, I've got something different to say that I really want to express, because I wanted people to know this is what's happening. This is why you're feeling things different energetically. You are a work in progress, literally being rebuilt from, you know, the higher realms on the earth plane around your physical shield and body. And so that's really what I talk about and teach about a lot, is that evolution of your energy body. And that book's with Llewellyn. I went to Llewellyn and said, I want to write an aura book, and here's why it's different. And they were like, yeah, we agree, let's do this. And I'm so excited. It just went into its fourth printing, and it's being published now in all different languages. And that's always so fun as an author, like when you get your cover and it's in French and Russian, and you're looking at the different, you know, just to know that people are interested all over about this. Because you know, the aura, the more you understand, the more it can help you in your daily life. And I am a practical person, so I like to teach to see the aura around a baby. So if your baby's crying, you can see, is it sick or is it just tired and cranky? What's going on in the aura? Or if you have a teenager and they're not really communicating all the time, you can see in the aura, are they doing something harmful? Are they, you know, using substances, abusing it, causing, or are they just moody? And that's what you're seeing in the aura. And so I teach how the ancient mystery schools taught about the aura. And I remember being a teacher back then teaching this, that the aura evolves every 7 years. And from 0 to age 7 is the physical layer of the aura, the one closest to us. It's why it's so important to get rest and nutrition and everything that a baby needs. The physical body, as we know, moves from this little bitty baby, you know, to a 7-year-old. From 7 to 14 is the emotional layer of the aura that gets the most work done. And this is what the mystery school temples taught. And so it's important to get good foundations of education and the basics, because what we learn, the fundamentals in elementary school, we just repeat onward. And that's why at that age, children are like, why? They, you know, they're mental sponges. The mental aura is soaking in all the knowledge. And from 14 to 21 is the emotional layer getting the most intensity. So it's important for us to remember when we're not that age, why our children at that age, everything is so emotionally overwhelming, how they can fight with a person and hate that person and make up an hour later, and I love you so much, and it's so intense. We have to remember their emotional aura is just, you know, vibrating and gathering. And that's when we make these emotional markers where we decide, we start to look, well, what is our parents' relationship like, and who loves me, and am I lovable, and what do I look like, and how do people, will they love me? And we consciously and subconsciously put all these messages in the aura. So at that time from 14 to 21, we put that emotionally in the aura. And it can affect us the rest of our lives if we don't know to go back and rewrite that or remove negative patterns we put in and replace them with positive ones of how we're lovable and how to love in a different way than maybe we experienced in our family or in early relationships. And then 21 to 28 is the spiritual level of the aura. And that's why we go on that journey of our 20s. Who am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose? And we're trying to create all this and merge it. And then according to what the ancient wisdom teachings say, every 7 years we evolve. So 28, 35, 42, and at 7 times 7 at 49, we enter what's called the wise woman phase or the wise man phase. And at that point, the aura has evolved and taken in all this information and energy, and we make a conscious decision, or sometimes subconscious for people, at 49, are we going to become masters of everything that we've taken in? And so that's when we enter our golden time at 50 to become wise if we want. And some people shut down and say, no, I'm kind of done, and they check out a little earlier. And other people say, I'm going to explore this further and deeper. So I talk about that with the wise woman teachings. What's fun is mystics like me and others, priestesses, wise women teachers, we've always said every 7 years you are being reborn, even at the cellular level. And if you stay with one of these 7-year cycles, you can implant new information into your aura. And as you rewrite your book of whatever you created of truth and rewrite it, it goes into the aura, into the chakras, into the bloodstream, into the cellular level, and you can radiate that new energy and be reborn, a completely new person in that 7-year cycle. Delightfully now, science is starting to agree. You have like Dr. Bruce Lipton and all these other, epigenetics and talking about the cellular level, and they say, oh, you know what? It seems to be about 7 years the time it takes to do it. So now science and spirituality are coming together and saying this. So I had to write about that and say, you're not stuck. You're not your genetics. You're not hereditary. You're what you inherited. You can change whatever you want. And I see it in people's auras. I see the karmic markers. They're like little dots I can see that open up into a movie I watch that tell them things about past lives or things they brought back from their Akashic records. I can see what's in the layers and help them work through that and release it if they want to bring something new in. So that's a lot of the work. I teach it. I teach around the country. I've taught at Omega and Edgar Casey's area. I'm there a lot teaching about it. The Learning Annex, Lilydale, I go wherever. But I teach about it online through my school as well because I'm just so passionate. I teach a lot of different things, but the aura is something, no matter who you are, you can put it practically in your daily life. You can understand it at the metaphysical level, but I've taught military people how to sense aura in buildings. So when they're in the field and they're like wondering, are there people in there, they can tune in and see energetically and feel if they're feeling energy, because once you know how to tune into that, it doesn't have to be seen in the physical. You're opening and expanding that. I taught someone that worked at the United Nations who they work with people and they're waiting for translators to hear the different language, and I taught them how to see auras so they can kind of see what that person's projecting, if it's honest and forthcoming, if they're speaking in integrity, or is there clouded and there's more going on there, to see beyond what they're seeing or being translated. I teach business people how to do it and to understand different auras of their employees and how to understand and work with the employees according to their energy fields. That's what I'm passionate. Maybe because I'm a Capricorn astrologically, I always look for okay, practically, how can we change our daily life and do this? And maybe that's more than you wanted to know about the aura.
Well, no, it's very fascinating. You said something, though, that I really would like you to answer more. So when I do energy work, I'm very fanatic about where it goes if you're taking energy out. And you were talking about seeing this energy coming out of the third solar plexus, out of the third chakra, and then you said it would just be like toxic stuff, and then it would just kind of like come out and drop off. Mm-hmm. Where did that go? So it projected out like a hose. It almost looked like
like a gutter or something,
Yeah.
and it goes out like this, and it drops straight down. So it drops down into the earth and was dissipating.
And then the earth just dissipates out across the earth.
Yes.
So it sounds like you wouldn't want to walk right behind that person when that just happened.
It seems to be pretty fast, the way it comes out. It's kind of no different than the person really was holding this in their aura. So the only difference is if you walked or got close to them, you'd feel it in their aura as well. That sludge, it's just being released. And so I think the earth actually helps dissipate it more and makes it less problematic than it is when that person's holding and projecting that, or if you work with that person or they're projecting angrily at you and they have all of that. I think that feels much worse actually than when it's, because at this point, when it's coming out, they're releasing. And so there's not that same energy or that anger. And it does, like I said, get smaller and smaller and dries up. And then you see the beautiful cords up here. And I talk about that, how cords connect with people in the aura. What it means to fall in love as the energy comes down. What happens when you make love with someone, how the cords connect. Cords, family ties, the cords that bind, how we describe everything really in life through the aura. That person has a sunny disposition, I'm feeling blue today, she's under the weather. We're always describing what's really happening in our little solar system here. It's fascinating.
Right. Fascinating.
One of the things that whenever I used to be a realtor is I could, when we would walk up to a house, I could tell you if the owners were home.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because an empty house feels different than a lived-in house.
Yes.
Even if you don't have a car in the door, whatever. And the other thing that I found was that houses had personalities which were reflective of the people that had lived in them. And of course, back in North Carolina, you've got houses where people have lived in them for hundreds of years. Out here, we're doing really good when they've lived there for 20 years. So, but the houses actually had a response to the new people. What I would feel is whether they were welcome or not. And that was interesting, and it was like the house itself was doing the choosing. That sounds kind of strange, but I would have people walk away from the perfect house, and I would just feel like the house had slammed the doors on them, that they were not the right people for that house. I don't know why, but the house said, no, not them. But the other thing is that Raven and I have a particular guide who's been saying for years that we are continually raising the vibration that we are living at. That our vibration that we were living at back in 1995 was a fairly low vibration, and that over the next 10 years it came up rather dramatically. But then over the last 10 years it's gone geometric speed, that we're now living at a vibration that we're in, and it goes back to this thing you were saying earlier about being able to do these shows and have everything available. It is like we are transcending the world. Einstein's phrase that time was invented in order to keep everything from happening at once. Mm-hmm. And it's like everything's happening at once. It's like there's so much happening so fast, and things are moving so fast. I mean, here we are in December of 2014, and I don't know about you, but I managed to lose 10 months. So what do you think? What is your take on that?
Well, I agree. I teach a lot about time and how to step out of time. And my mother, when she was pregnant with me, now in a small southern town in Louisiana, she would have dreams about me, and they would say, name her Kayla. And she would say, okay, Kayla. And they said, no Y. Her name is Kayla, Kala. And my mother said, okay, I will name her Kayla, because she kept having this recurring dream. The whole family fought her on it because, it's a little southern town. They wanted to name me Bobby Sue or whatever, I don't know. But she stuck with it. And so she named me Kayla Renee. And then later she found out that Kayla is Sanskrit. It's an ancient name, and it means time. It means goddess. It has meanings in Hebrew, in Scandinavian, in Hawaii, Sanskrit, on and on. But it's time, goddess, bride, beautiful energy like that. So Renee means reborn. So my name is Time Reborn. And I think that really set the tone for what I was here to do and to help shift, because I teach a lot of things, including entrepreneur intuition, of how to have all these different projects going. And people always ask me, how do you find the time to do everything you do? Because I write, I teach, I have talk shows, I'm a wife, and just so many different things. And I really know how to step out of time and have all these projects going and juggle them at the same time. So I love to teach that to entrepreneurs. But second, that's what I see shifting in the aura, is because this crystalline structure is shifting us through that. We are, I believe, really breaking apart the fourth dimension right now of time, because we don't need it the same way anymore. And all the priestesses all taught, the mystery schools all taught, time is not linear, time's cyclical. That's why history repeats itself, as we say. We're moving in cycles from divine masculine, divine feminine. We alternate between them, but we're always cycling up. The time is moving upward with each evolution. So if people can get that time is not left to right, A to Z, that really it's just a circle, it's a cycle, and each time we evolve up a little more, this is what we're doing. We're moving just like a DNA helix evolving. We're moving, we can even say like the Ida and the Pangala, we're moving in that serpentine energy. Each cycle moves us upward, and so we're about to change time and what time means as we make this leap from third, fourth, into fifth dimension. And that's what I see around the aura. And that's why people, I think, so much now that time doesn't mean the same. We don't have to be in a certain time anymore. People are creating their own way to work, working hours that work from them through the internet and being able to work at home. People find whatever they want to do, shop when they want, watch what they want, everything through this Aquarian age, which is a symbol of time reinventing itself. It's when you want something, it's now available to you. You are not held by time. And yet here we are in December, where we think about Saturn and the planets like that, the ruler of time, but we are shifting time. We are making that happen. And I really think it's been hard this last cycle of 2007 to 2014. We really had to learn some hard lessons, and this is the time, if you look back at this 7 years, where you really had some tough lessons, all of us, to let go for the shift. And I really think 2015 is still going to be a little of that, of course, correction, but 2016 onward, we're about to have a good time. There's some really good things coming.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I could use some good times. And, it's interesting as we move forward into space and into time, and that there's, in a way, it's like there's a lot of people coming forward now that weren't there before. Not necessarily as gurus, but as, and I wouldn't say as channels either. It's just they're bringing information that didn't exist, or it existed, but we've lost it. Raven and I are both still mourning the loss of the Library of Alexandria, and we'll get very upset about the whole subject. We have a close relationship with the librarian, who is Sashat, and the goddess of books and learning, and we do our best to, by the way, to fill our houses with books so that we have that part of the library in our house, and it's that energy of, as we move forward, and I think this is what we need to look at this month. Yes, it's December, it's 2014, we're in the end of this 7-year cycle, and where do we want to go from here? Because in a way we do recreate ourselves. We do create who we want to be next. And since I've decided I'm not going to grow up, I might as well figure out who I'm going to be, because that's the only thing I have left. Whenever you're old enough to collect Social Security and you still aren't going to grow up, you're, dedicated to that principle. But you know, there is a time coming where we are having an opportunity to look at who we are and who we want to be and who we want to, what legacy. I mean, I realize that at my age, you know, looking at your legacy is really an issue, of looking at the legacy that you're going to leave for your children and your grandchildren. What is the legacy we want to leave for our, you know, for the world that comes after us? You know, do we want to have the, you know, the Thunderdome world, or do we want to have a paradise? I mean, we can create either one. And I think that that's where we're looking at. So your books are helping support that and help support people around the world, as you said, as they're being produced in different languages. You know, I know that Russia has opened up, and I have a number of friends over in Russia now, and they are hungry for information. It's like they've been denied it for so long. And information and wisdom is the thing that they desire the most. And there's, you know, a lot of the Arabic countries, I know the women there are seeking wisdom and knowledge. It's one of the things we frequently get into conversations when we're in Egypt with the Egyptian women, the higher class, let's say, the ones that can speak English. And so, you know, it's interesting that, you know, as you transcend this barrier where you are the travel guide to the beyond, you're also providing people with an opportunity to see who they really are. Mm-hmm. So based on what I've just said and some of the things that you've just said, where do you see you going in the next few years?
Oh, gosh. You know, I always write a 5-year vision plan of where I'm going and to put it out there. And so what I do is I think about the things I love and want to do, and then I just say, not my will, but divine will, highest and best divine order, and then let Spirit take me on the journey where I need to be. So I have kind of a big picture plan, but I don't define it too much at the same time, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I know I'll be writing more, I know I'll be teaching more, and expanding in that, but my writing is about to change. I'm working on a new book that's fiction, and the interesting thing about it is, I don't really know how to explain this, but there are 2 people in spirit form who told me their story, and they want me to tell this story, but I will be telling it in a fictional manner to protect the others. So am I ghostwriting? Am I a scribe? Am I writing fiction? It's going to be a mixture of the 3. And
sounds like a total ghostwriting. Yeah. You're literally being a ghostwriter.
Absolutely. And so I'm going to be putting, you know, my own spin into it as well, but that's the next book I'm working on. And so it's really a different stepping out of nonfiction into fiction, even though there's 2 people telling me their story and wanting me to put into that. So I'm like, is that what I'll be doing next? Is your travel guide to the other side, writing stories for people on the other side that want their story to come through? So I know that's one thing. And I just wanted to say, too, I'm totally in sync with you both about Library of Alexandria. I've always, since I was a little girl, mourned it and would talk about it. I think that's a sign of a priestess. If you're still, you know, if you're still mourning the Library of Alexandria, you know you were a priestess doing things there. And just, you know, when I teach students in person, they're always have been taught in my library. And there's something to me about that, recreating that Library of Alexandria, where great philosophy and wisdom teachings were shared in that way. And to me, there has to be books around me to make that happen. It has to be a library feel to make it work for me. And I know other people teach in other ways, out in nature and other things, but for me, that's my closest home. Is there's got to be books and a kind of temple atmosphere in that way.
Raven and I have been discussing the Goddess Ranch, which is our intended retirement home, which we're going to be creating in the next 5 years, somewhere between the next 2 and 5 years. And one of the things we've identified is that we want to have a central library, which is the gathering room, which is the place where we teach classes, where everyone comes to share wisdom and knowledge and the stories of their day. So, this is an idea that we've had for some time, and now we're at the time where we really have to start working on it. So we're working towards that. We'd love to have you as a guest, by the way.
I would love to. Anytime I can come anywhere where the Library of Alexandria is being made with goddess energy, I'm there.
Well, I really appreciate you being here with us this evening, and I want to thank you so much for being on. I'd love to have you back. As I said, I'm going to be doing master classes beginning in the new year, and I'd love to have you come back and teach us a master class, either on the Aura or on the Mystery School. Those are both fascinating, and I'm sure everybody would want to hear more about that. And I also want to thank you for your continued diligence that you have produced 500 shows?
Over 500 now.
So if you would give the link that tells people how to get to the podcast so that they can listen to some of those. I know that you've interviewed our dear Nikki and Normandy and a number of other people, Sandra, the Ingerman. So if you would give that link, I'd appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. It's exploreyourspirit.com. And you can go in there and click on the radio, and all the archives are there. They're for free download. And also, if you're on, they're on iTunes. And I have a free app as well, the Explore Your Spirit app. You can link to it on there and download it for free and listen to all the shows on your phone as well. So it's your choice. From the computer, you can download them, get them on iTunes, or get the app.
Well, that's fabulous. I so appreciate that. And then you have classes coming up. I looked on your site. I believe you have some coming up in February.
Yes, I just finished. Actually, this Thursday will be the last a whole year of Wise Woman Wisdom courses I taught. And those are recorded, so even if you missed them, you can just go to exploreyourspirit.com, click on Kayla's Academy, and they're all available for purchase as video downloads so that you can get the full 2-hour courses. Then starting in the new year in January, I'm teaching how to see, sense, and activate your aura, a 6-week online course, a webinar course where you study live with me and you can chat and ask your questions, and we go deep into the aura and how to see it and work with it. So that's coming up next, and always new courses at the Academy there. I'm going to be doing some about divine design, and I studied traditional feng shui for years, so I love to talk about feng shui and design and energy in the homes like you were talking about with real estate, and tap into that. And then later in 2015, I'm going to be doing 6 weeks of psychic school, how to tap into all your intuitive abilities and things like that. Always something new at the Academy we're doing. I have courses on there, how to read tea leaves, how to work with crystals and gemstones, anything fun, to explore that way.
Okay, so exploreyourspirit.com. It's all one word?
All one word.
All right, great. That's lovely. I'll make sure it goes out in the announcement for the link to this show. And thank you for being here and gracing us with your presence. And look forward to talking with you again real soon. Raven, I want to thank you for being present. And Raven is my co-host and right hand and best friend, and I don't know what all else. She's incredible. Raven is an incredible tarot reader, a tarot card consultant. So if you need a consultation with a tarot, Raven, where would they go?
kravenwood@yahoo.com is my email, or Catherine, Kathryn, ravenwood.com.
All right. Well, thank you for that, and we appreciate it. And I appreciate all of you who are listening live, and I also appreciate all of you who are listening on YouTube in the future. This is a labor of love as we are putting it together, and we are moving into new spaces and new times. Let me know what you'd like to hear. If there's someone you'd like to hear that I don't know about, or I may know about them, but I haven't thought of it. We're currently booking for the spring quarter, and we're also looking at doing these master classes. So if you've got someone you'd really like to take a class with and you'd like to hear more about what it is they have to offer, please let us know. You can send me an email at Gloria Taylor Brown SD, that's SD like San Diego, at gmail.com. I'm sure most of you have gotten an email from me, so you will be able to find that. And next week we have on Teresa Diantino, who is a traditional strega, a witch of the Italian extraction, and she has written several books on the subject, and we look forward to having her and speaking with her and finding new information. And what I want you to know is this is a gathering of priestesses, and everyone who is here is worthy of being on this show. So if you want to be on the show, let me know. Tell me about yourself. We have a group on Facebook called A Gathering of Priestesses. You have to ask in order to join. I'm keeping it that way because I want to make sure that we don't get, well, I guess they're called trolls. Anybody in there that is not of our ilk. And I also have a membership site, which is gatheringofpriestesses.com, which has no A on it, just Gathering of Priestesses. We do post all of these videos on YouTube. They are available, and we are going to be posting them on iTunes, so they will be available as podcasts. We thank you so much for being here this evening. We bless each and every one of you. We release you, and we let you know that we hope you go in love and spirit. Amen.
Namaste.
Thank you so